Appalachian National Scenic Trail, generally known as the Appalachian Trail or simply the AT, is a marked hiking trail in the eastern United States, extending between Springer Mountain in Georgia and Mount Katahdin in Maine. You know what? We did an episode on AT, and I couldn't pronounce it then, and I still can't pronounce it now. Katahdin, I think it is.
There you go.
The trail is roughly 2,200 miles long. The Appalachian Trail Conservancy describes the Appalachian Trail as the longest hiking-only trail in the world. Between 2 million and 3 million people hike the AT each year, according to a recent count by the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Of those, few attempt a through hike, and most that do start in Georgia in the spring. Around 10% of through hikers start in Maine, usually in June when the weather has improved. So for those listening who don't know, a through hike is when they start the trail and they don't stop until they get to the end.
Mm-hmm.
So the other types are when people do section hikes where they'll do sections of the AT maybe a couple times a year and eventually finish the entire thing throughout their lifetime.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned this on our first episode that we did on the AT. This is definitely on my list of things to someday do. Right now, there'd be no way I could do a through hike, but maybe break it up into pieces and hit a piece every couple years. So
yeah, no, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So the number of through hikers per year has increased steadily, with 715 northbound and 133 southbound through hikes reported for 2017. Some seeking a more intense version of the through hike, they'll do the entire length of it, turn around, and through hike the way back, which is known as a yo-yo.
Crazy.
Yeah, so 1 in 4 ever finish that.
So yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
It's probably 1 in 4 finish. That sounds like fewer finish this than climb Everest.
It's so much time.
Yeah.
Like, because Everest is a lot of time, but it's not. It's a lot of it's like acclimation and waiting for weather. This is like you're moving from constantly every day for months.
Yeah.
To get it done. Like, you have to be able to get the time off, and it's just a mental endurance game for like several months to get it done. So the idea for the Appalachian Trail came about in 1921. The trail itself was completed in 1937 after more than a decade of work. The AT is currently maintained by 31 trail clubs, multiple partnerships, and is managed by the National Park Service, the United States Forest Service, and the nonprofit Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Most of the trail is in forests or wildlands, although some portions traverse towns, roads, and farms. The AT, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Pacific Crest Trail, or PCT, form what is known as the Triple Crown of hiking in the United States. So if you're able to through hike all of those,
yeah.
And I think even if you finish them all, not even in through hikes, you are considered like a Triple Crown holder of hiking.
Yeah, and that is quite an accomplishment if you actually have through hiked all of them. I would say even hiking just a small section of each of them is pretty cool, because they're, different parts of the country. And I've been on the Pacific Crest Trail, and I think I've been on a section of the Continental Divide Trail, but
yeah, I've been on parts of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just not specifically to be there. It's more like the places I was going intersected with them.
Yeah, and now, Joe, the next section you're going to describe, just so the listeners know, Joe is going to just briefly describe the section that Jessie was planning to hike. So
this is the 100-mile wilderness, an area so remote that the Maine Appalachian Trail Club strongly urges hikers carry at least 8 to 10 days worth of food on this leg alone. It is generally considered the wildest section of the AT and one of the most challenging to navigate and traverse. This section of the trail is crossed by several logging roads and is maintained by the Maine Appalachian Trail Club. It consists of a small corridor of protected wilderness surrounded by large tracts of public and private land controlled by paper companies.
Yeah, and it's...
So yeah, like 100 miles to take 8 to 10 days is pretty crazy, because I think a lot of those people try and do 20 miles a day.
Yeah.
And they do that pretty steadily.
Yeah, and the thing I read about this section of the AT is that it's very easy to get lost, partly because of all of those logging roads that, crisscross the trail. And I think it's, like they said, it's more wild, so the trail is not as defined in all the areas. So
Well, and you don't have a ton of people going through there all the time. Like, that's
Yeah.
different when you get in a national park and you have millions of people visiting, but it's in a small space. You have paths that just stay permanently beaten down.
Yep.
Whereas if you have this area, if you only have a couple people going through, the overgrowth will cover stuff up pretty quick.
Yeah.